Hi, I'm Daniel, she's Ruth,
Hi.
and we are chatting from Tel Aviv in Israel. This is Israel Uncovered, and today we are discussing life between missiles. Kind of like what is it like to live in a city when we've had pretty much daily rocket attacks. It's on.
It's on.
I think so.
Okay, good.
I hope so.
Just checking our tech.
I hope so. So kind of like, what is what is it like to live? Like, how does your routine, how does your day to day, how does your job, how does everything change when you're living under daily missiles, whether they're from Gaza, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Yemen, whatever? That's kind of like less relevant. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And how do you live?
So maybe we should start with October 7th
Right.
and that morning and where we were.
Right.
And so for me, I was staying at the Cinema Hotel and woke up that morning to a text message from actually the protest leader who I was very good friends with in London.
Right.
Message
The Cinema
from her.
Hotel is a small boutique hotel in the center of Tel Aviv, just for context
Yeah,
for someone.
yeah. And I woke up to this text message saying sirens in central Tel Aviv. I actually hadn't heard a siren at that point. This is around 8 o'clock. Bear with me because I feel that the timings of that morning are a little bit skewed because it was just a mess. So I think it was around 8, but the sirens obviously started going off in the south around at 6:29.
Also in Tel Aviv at 6:30. I just feel like you slept through it. Maybe
yeah,
you
I
slept through
think
the
I
first
did.
couple of
I
sirens.
think I did. I think
Right.
I did, and then woke up to this text message, and then it was just I went on social media, and I just saw all the map of Israel and the red. It was just red alerts everywhere. I actually then realised something big was up, but again was not kind of taking it, not that I wasn't taking it seriously, I just didn't feel too disturbed by it at that time in the morning.
Right.
So I went to the Super Uda to get provisions.
Explain what the Super Uda is.
Super Uda is the 7-Eleven, the corner shop. So I went and got some provisions. I saw somebody I knew in there, and we both kind of looked at each other and didn't say a word. At this point, I think we all knew that something terrible was happening, but we just didn't know to what extent. Anyway, I got back to the hotel. At this point, I still hadn't heard a siren, but I was very clear on where the mamad was.
What's the mamad?
The mamad was on my floor.
No, but explain what the mamad is.
Sorry, the mamad is the safe room and the bomb shelter, which is in Tel Aviv. When a rocket siren goes off, we have 90 seconds to get to shelter. This time varies depending on where you are in the country. So for us in Tel Aviv, it's 90 seconds. If you're south, it can be 7 or 3 to 7.
Right. And everyone by law in Israel has to have, I don't know if it's by law or not by law, but I think most people do have in their house, in their building, in their office, whatever, you're always near a bomb shelter.
Near a bomb.
Sometimes it's like a room in your house that is specially secure. Sometimes it's like a basement in the block,
under the
whatever,
stairs.
under the stairs. Like there's like all these designated spots so that when there's like an air raid siren, you know exactly where you should go, and you also know exactly, like you said, like how much time you have. Like some people have 15 seconds, other a minute, other we have a minute and a half to basically run for our lives.
Exactly. So I was in the hotel, the mamad was on the same floor, but at this point I still hadn't heard a siren, weirdly.
Okay.
Anyway, as the day went on, the evening, I definitely remember hearing the sirens, and it was the first time in my life that I had heard the Iron Dome intercepting above my head.
What does that sound like?
So it's a boom. It's a boom, and you know that it's the rocket being intercepted.
Right.
And and then they can be seconds apart. You hear the boom, and then you kind of hear something else, don't you? You hear?
I don't know. It depends. It depends where you're standing. Some people hear like that, so kind of like the interceptor, and then the boom. Some people then hear the boom, and then if there's some fallout, you hear what fell on the floor.
Yeah.
Like it depends.
It depends. But it is I've never felt terrified or scared in Tel Aviv. When the siren goes off, I've always sort of felt quite, in a way, relaxed being with other people going through it.
Right.
So for me, there was a time actually in London a few weeks ago where I still had my alerts, my red alerts on. And
explain on your phone, you mean?
So
I think most people won't know, like that's, it's in your app on your phone.
So I have an app on my phone called Homefront Command, and this app alerts me to when if there's a
you get a notification
missile.
when there's like a siren in your area. So let's say if you're in your house, you don't hear, you're in a shower, whatever, you just get like an
alert. So I hadn't turned my notifications off. I was in London, and it was 4:45, I think, in the morning, and the siren went off. Well, I was dead to the world, asleep, and the alert came on my phone. I jumped out of my skin. I was like, "Where am I? Am I in Tel Aviv?
Right.
Am I in London?"
Right.
And then
it's a bit of PTSD, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Right.
It's bizarre. And then obviously Israel was 2 hours ahead.
Right.
You were all in shelters. I think also we never know where the missile is coming from. We kind of find that out afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that is really interesting, because it's like it got to a point in the war 3-4 months in that you're like, it's like a roulette. It's like, is it Gaza? Is it Lebanon? Is it Yemen? Is it Iraq? Is it Iran? Is it Syria? Is it, from the West Bank? So it's kind of crazy, kind of like saying like, okay, hide, and 10 minutes later you find out who threw it, what was it? Was it a drone? Was it a ballistic missile? Was it a rocket? So it's kind of crazy. I mean, my personal October 7th experience was, I went for dinner October 6th with some friends. We came back walking. The weather was gorgeous here. It was
gorgeous.
And so it was
Sukkot as well. It was Sukkot. We were going into Simchat.
Yeah, it was a Jewish holiday.
Yeah.
So, and then I went for dinner, a couple of friends, my friend's husband, everything. And then we walked back along like one of the main avenues of Tel Aviv. And the weather was so nice that I slept with the window open. I mean, at 6:30...
Instead of the mazgan.
Right, explain what the mazgan is. I just think people don't know all this. You just assume that everyone lives in Tel Aviv.
I know. So the mazgan is the air conditioning.
Right.
And so October 6th, it's like it wasn't boiling that you needed the mazgan. You had the window open instead.
Right. So I had my window open, and at 6:30 in the morning, I hear these, and then...
It's very unusual in Tel Aviv as well.
Right. And then, because I wasn't expecting it, my first, and it was 6:30, and I was like, I went to bed late, and I had some alcohol the night before. So my first thought, the first thing that went through my brain, I was like, oh, is that like an alarm of some shop in my neighborhood that is being robbed, and maybe some kind of like alarm? The second thought was like, is it some truck reversing really near my house, and it's making this reversing truck noise?
Is it the binman?
Right. It was, and then I started hearing the cling, cling, cling of like people basically pulling their metal shutters in their rooms that are like the safe rooms. And then I was that. And then I looked at my phone, and then I saw that there was an alert. And then I was like, what the hell? Anyway, so I closed the shutter, kind of like put on the news, or just like check my Twitter news, everything. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, there's all these things happening. And then the rest of the day was crazy. And it's interesting you say you were not scared in Tel Aviv, because I was. I mean, I was in Tel Aviv. I live on a first floor with a massive balcony, all the windows kind of like facing. So I feel like my apartment is very exposed to the streets. And when I start seeing in the news that there's all these convoys of terrorists going town by town, village by village. And what most people don't know is, number one, this is like a 30-minute drive to Tel Aviv. Yeah. So I know that these convoys can be in 30 minutes in my house. Number two, we start getting orders of like, lock your windows, lock your doors, all of that.
So I didn't have that because I was in a hotel.
Right.
I think that was why I also wasn't scared.
Right.
Was because I was with other people in a hotel. I wasn't on my own in an apartment. So I completely get how our experiences were.
Yeah. And then
different.
also, like, I felt there was a huge element of confusion, and the only
Yeah.
people that
the confusion.
the only people that I think can relate to it to an extent is almost like that I've heard of. It's kind of like the 9/11. Do you remember when, for example, like the first tower hit and nobody knew, is it an accident or is it an attack? And then the second hit is like, what the fuck is going on? And then you enter in this state of panic. It's like, okay, what comes next? What building are they going to hit next? What's going to blow up next? So there was this sense and also here, because it was like, I mean, we didn't know it was 5,000 people invading the country. In the beginning of 3,000. So we didn't know it was 3,000 people invading the country. We just knew that it was like, we started seeing, oh, there's this little car of terrorists in the road. There's this little car of terrorists in that kibbutz. So actually, until many days later, you don't know what's going on till after. It's kind of like what you say. Something explodes, something blows up, something goes on. And then you don't really find out what happened, how it happened, who died, what died, everything of that. That's why it's also really funny when, when the news are like, oh, a bomb has fallen, 500 people dead, this and that. It's like, that's just, nobody knows. You don't know for days.
No, you don't know
You don't know for days. So nobody
I think I had access to CNN.
Yeah.
So that was on, but I kind of turned it off. And then when I turned it on again, it was just horror after horror being reported. And I could not get my head couldn't compute what was going on 30 minutes away from us.
Right.
I couldn't compute, my head couldn't compute it. I then got, this is quite fun, I got a knock on the door, my hotel room, and they gave me a bottle of Carver and a bottle of Carver in a bucket of ice.
Right.
And I was like, well, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to sit on my balcony and I'm going to crack on with the Carver. So I did. I turned the news off. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should go and check the news again. Well, that was kind of a mistake. And
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't. I was glued to the local news, actually. Yeah. I was watching Israeli news. The people were on the ground. There was so much confusion. I think, to me, the moment I understood something major was happening, it wasn't even like when, they blew up some bases and they went into all these kibbutzim and there was this terrorists and people were hiding and this and that.
Festival.
But yeah, when I saw the people in the festival running, being filmed, with being shot from 3 different directions, literally just running for their life like rabbits, and people being killed and not getting up and hiding behind bushes or trees, in bins, in the portable loos.
Yeah.
Like when I saw that visual about young people at a music festival being hunted by hundreds of terrorists, shooting at them.
The portaloos.
Yeah, but like when you see that like live and they're broadcasting it, I understood. I was like, okay, like basically very quickly, I think the whole country understood that this is not a terrorist attack, this is an invasion.
Yeah.
This is an invasion and this is a war. And I just think, because I've been in Israel for like over 10 years now, and I've also been under different rocket attacks when they throw a couple of rockets from here, from there, from the other, and you're like, oh my God, not a few rockets again, a week of rockets, this and that. On this one, I think 2-3 weeks in, I was like, okay, we're at war.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Netanyahu declared war a few hours after.
Yeah, which I thought...
few hours after.
Which made sense. I mean, two hours in, I was like, okay, we're in a war.
Yeah.
And it's good that he said it.
And that was, weirdly, that the message I woke up, the text message I woke up to was, this is a cooked up war. That's what my friend Sharon sent me. This is a cooked up war.
Well, the moment I saw everything that was going on...
And I still wasn't quite understanding it. I think it was such a...
Well, when I saw all the things happening, it's like, again, it's not like a terrorist shooting someone in a shopping mall or someone stabbing someone. The moment you saw that it was super coordinated, the paragliders, the people in sea, by land, by air, by, breaking the fences, going into towns, it was so methodical, it was so strategic, it was so planned. Then the fence, so like, it was clear that it was super organized, it was super planned, and it was a declaration of war. Which again, anyway, so after October 7th, kind of like to move on from that day, is like, then the way I would describe the atmosphere here for the days that followed was like COVID. To me, it felt like very COVID-y, because like people stopped going to school, people stopped going to work, most of the shops were closed.
I've never, ever seen Tel Aviv as quiet.
You weren't here at COVID?
I wasn't here at COVID. Right. I was in the UK. So no, I haven't. But for me, it was eerie.
Right. Especially because
Eerie.
here is like really busy and people's out and working out and walking the dogs and
Yeah.
having coffees in the streets.
I met Eleanor the next day. We
Who's
met
Eleanor?
Eleanor runs the boutique. I won't point. Eleanor runs the boutique that I stock in, and is a very good friend. And we went and we had a walk on the beach and just dipped our toes in the water, but the beach was closed.
Right.
We weren't really supposed to do that.
Right.
But we hadn't been told that we were on lockdown or anything like that. But it was just eerily quiet.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I was also like on my own, and a friend of mine from well, the first couple of days were crazy because basically we're just like looking at the footage of all the footage that Hamas published. It was crazy because it was like literally terrorists like stealing phones of people to film how they shoot the parents in front of the children, shoot the children in front of the parent, do this, do that, the other. So 2 weeks of that on a loop, which was kind of like part of the attack. It was like this psychological horror terror campaign. So after 2 weeks of that, and then I remember I had a meeting because obviously we were told to work from home with these companies I was working for, and then we had like these catch-ups. And they said like, war updates. So everyone's like, okay, kind of like to discuss the logistics, how we're going to do, let's carry on, if anybody needs anything, da. And then one of the things that really made me sad was I work with technology startups, so they're like very young environments. And one of the guys we could see, we had like one evening we had the update on Zoom, and we could see that one day one of our colleagues was in daytime. We could see that it was light around him, and they were like, "Where are you?" And he was like, "I'm in Thailand." He was on holiday, and lots of people, Israelis love Thailand. They love going there to the moon party, get drunk, it's cheap, the beaches, everything. Anyway, so he's like, "I'm in Thailand." He's like, "This is terrible. I'm desperate to go back. My friends are desperate to go back. We keep getting bad news from the Nova festivals, from our friends." And it's just so heartbreaking. You're in a Zoom and you see like, these 22-year-old kids in Thailand, desperate to get back home. He just keeps getting all these mixed news about what's happening. This friend died, this friend was kidnapped, this friend is injured. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So there was like this kind of like, I feel like after that day, everyone kind of like needs like massive therapy. But then after the day, kind of like, then it was like a week or two of like working from home. And then slowly it went into going back to the offices. But the rockets haven't stopped. I think one of the things that really annoy me is when people frame it as like, oh yeah, well, there was a terrorist attack on October 7th, and everything that has happened since is retaliation, revenge, response. And it's like, no, it started on that day, kind of like they declared the war, and there's been non-stop missiles and rockets from seven fronts since then. And we've spent like the best part of an entire year going in and out of bomb shelters. And it is true that
this is not reported on the media in terms of what Israelis have been living through, and especially those in the north.
Oh, totally.
Well, you've been talking about the displacement in the north for months and months and months publicly, and it's kind of been this area that's just been ignored by the rest of the media.
Well, that's the thing, is like all the focus was like Gaza, 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 which again is fine and it's tragic and it's sad and it's important to report it. Great. But nobody reported the daily attacks in the north of Israel, kind of like at the border with Lebanon, every single day from October 8th. By the way, coming from a country, well, it's not really an attack. It's from Hezbollah, which is the Iranian proxy in Lebanon. So again, I always say, like, it's not a war against Gaza, it's not a war against Lebanon. It's a war happening, rockets being thrown from Lebanon into Israel, where actually, two countries that have they don't even have like any land disputes. There's no reason why there should be like exchange of fire between Israel and Lebanon. There's no disagreement. There's no reason why there shouldn't be like peace, and I should be able to go to Beirut for coffees, and people from Beirut can come to Tel Aviv for a night out. But 10% of the landmass of Israel was depopulated kind of like a week after October 7th because of the daily rocket attacks.
Yeah.
And
80,000 people.
80,000 people. Also like in some places 30, 40, 50% of the houses in these villages are destroyed. So they literally look like Gaza. And of course, nobody ever shows that. So like so many people, for example, I went 3 days after October 7th to my parents in Jerusalem. And they live near a few hotels, and they were all packed with people from the north and from the south. So like all the internally displaced refugees, whatever, they were staying there. We were getting messages in the, from our building kind of like management community for people, for private houses to help them with things like laundry.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody can do like a couple of loads of laundry,
Yeah.
we have like all these hotels full of refugees. So there was also like this sense of like, okay, how can I help? How can I make sandwiches for these people, do dinner for that people, help this person with laundry?
I was just about to jump in there, because what I saw was amazing levels of social action, how everyone sprung into this social action. So the day, October 8th, kick our D's and golf, everyone was bringing toiletries and tins of food, and it was just stuff for soldiers, for refugees.
Right.
And I started helping out, volunteering with a small group of locals, packing boxes and sort of aid packages for the soldiers.
Right.
And that was amazing to feel sort of part of the struggle.
Yeah.
But also processing so much trauma.
Right.
And then, I was literally meeting Nova survivors the following day. People who had been displaced from the south, those who had had terrorists in their homes. From the north, from the south, the hotel was just filling up with evacuees.
Right.
And then the medical clowns that would come round.
Yeah.
I found that a bit disconcerting.
Yeah.
Because clowns scare me, but
same. I'm also true. I hate clowns.
But then they were like, I was beginning to understand these are for the children and all of that. So
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned children as well, because so kind of like moving away from like from October 7th trauma, kind of like the rest of the year is kind of like you end up being, I don't know, some people say like, yeah, I'm relaxed and I'm chill. I'm not relaxed and I'm not chilled. So like, and also like people get really confused, because they're like, well, you're in a war zone, but then on Instagram you're posting that you're having a cocktail here or that you're going to the beach on a Saturday. People don't realize how you can go in and out of a situation, like, okay, so yeah, I was having dinner also like at my friend's house the other night, and then in the middle of dinner the siren goes off, we have to go 4 flights of stairs downstairs, wait 10 minutes, here a boom. So I think people don't realize that also life goes on. Just because like you've had like, let's say like 2 rocket sirens in a day doesn't mean that
it's not going to affect you.
No, that everything else collapses, that you're going to stop going to the gym, that you don't need to have lunch, that you're not gonna, that you still have like deadlines for work. So, like life goes on whether you like it or not.
It does. And I think that's a real sort of testament of the resilience of the Israeli people.
I agree.
And the country, because before the first Iran attack in April, which I wasn't here for.
I was.
You were, but I remember hearing friends in Tel Aviv, and they were like, "Yeah, it's fine. We're going to finish our drinks and our dinner. It's fine. Then it's not going to be here for another hour and a half."
Because we had kind of like 4 or 5 hour. Basically, the missiles they launched, they were going to take 5, 6, 7 hours, something like that. Yeah. Which meant that people here it was on a Saturday night.
It was Saturday night.
So people were, okay, we still have 3, 4 hours. And again, some people were. I wasn't. I was freaking out.
Okay.
So it depends. It really depends. So I just went. I kind of like filled a couple of water bottles, went into my room. From the beginning of the night, actually, my room is the shelter room in the house. So I kind of like closed the metallic shutter, like the iron shutter in my window. So I was like in my little bunker anyway. And then what I did is started researching. I kind of like went online to research the different type of rockets, because the other thing I feel that happens is because people outside of Israel hear like, oh, another attack, they just get immune to, oh, it's just another rocket attack. And people don't realize that there's a massive difference between like a rocket from Gaza or from Hezbollah and a ballistic missile from Iran. Like a ballistic missile.
You're absolutely right.
I just don't think people understand the insanity and the scale. Is like, is the attack from Iran was the biggest ballistic missile attack on another country in history.
In history.
People don't understand the scale of it. And that's why I was so upset the morning after. And by the way, going back to your point about resilience, yes, a lot of people didn't sleep, this and that. I mean, lots of terrible things. Okay, it was kind of like stopped, and it was a combination of like the whatever, like the British Air Forces, American Air Forces,
Jordan,
obviously Israeli. I don't know. All of these countries got together. Exactly, Jordan, Arab countries, like everyone kind of like helped to stop the thingy. But then the morning after, like when I heard Biden saying, "Oh, huge success for Israel, Netanyahu, he should take the win," and I was like, "Is that what a win looks like? To have like a whole country.
And 10 million people in rocket shelters.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean,
people don't understand. It's like, I understand that people say, yeah, it was a successful military operation to thwart that. But people don't understand the insanity of having 10 million people in bomb shelters one entire night. And also the difference I felt, I mean, you weren't here, but I was here.
Oh, sorry, I was here for the second one.
Right. No, there were two exactly, which is even crazier.
One in April, one in October, 1st of October. I was here for October.
Also, the sound of the boom when they're intercepted.
Insane.
It's 10 times, it's like literally like
insane.
The ground shakes.
Yeah.
A ballistic missile. That's what I did with the first Iranian attack. It was, I started researching. I was like, okay, I didn't know anything. What's the difference between like a surface-to-surface missile and a ballistic missile and a suicide drone? What was the explosive load? What's the significant damage it can cause? I start freaking out. I start like saying like, okay, are they coming from the east, from the west? Where's my room located? If something impacts my building, like what? So I start like going into my whole little paranoia. The other thing I do is I got some alcohol.
Yeah.
And again, everyone reacts differently. I also started sending memes with friends, like really funny stuff that really, really helped. I also thought the local news were really, really helpful because they were, just follow the rules, the country's prepared, just do this, do that. If there's an issue,
find
call
that
this
very
number.
calming.
I find it really calming.
Very
They
calming.
were really good at managing the situation, I thought.
I just want to also say that, yes, there are times when it is scary, but I think, honestly, for me, what has been scarier in this last year has been what I've been witnessing on the streets of London, rather than what I've been experiencing here. What this sort of takeover of our streets every other weekend, and what I'm seeing just day to day on us is much more frightening.
Well, I think the difference is that here, there's a crystal clear clarity of who your enemies are. You're like, okay,
Absolutely.
You want to kill me, I won't let you.
Yeah.
And there is like, oh, it's a peaceful protest. They just want peace and stuff, and they just want to ceasefire.
Yeah.
And you're like, no.
And there are hostage posters ripped down. You're like, what am I living in?
Waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags and saying resistance by any means and all these things.
You're like, what country am I living in? Because this is not.
Yeah.
This is not the UK.
And then also going back to the day-to-day life, the other thing I would say is there's a huge difference if you're at home and near a shelter, you're in the middle of the street. So, for example, like my sister, after October 7th, was in the middle. She was going to a job interview with my dad in a car, and then the siren goes on. So what happens if you're like in the middle of a motorway? Right. So you have to get off the car.
Yeah.
You have to basically take cover.
You just
you
lie on the floor.
Lie on the floor.
There's a certain position. I don't know what that position is. I should probably learn it.
Right. So that's also quite scary if you're in a bus. Also, I was in a train 3 days after October 8th. I went to my parents in Jerusalem, and in between station, the siren goes off. So I had my little trolley with a bunch of things, and then I don't know. It sounds stupid, but I'm like, do I leave my trolley inside the train? Do I take it with me to the station?
Yeah.
Where in the people in the station are taking you to the bomb shelter in the station? So. It's kind of crazy. And then I took my trolley with me. I took into the bomb shelter. I was like, well, some people cannot get into the bomb shelter because I have my shitty trolley with me, and who's going to steal it? So there's all these stupid things that you just don't know how you're going to react. And then, of course, everything ends. Then I see like the interception above me. We hear the boom. Then we go back to the train. And of course, you're shaken.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not chilled.
No. There was a time actually when you and I were together enjoying a happy hour.
Yeah.
and
Having
the siren
a white
went
wine.
off. Having a white wine. Well, Daniel runs straight to the shelter.
Right.
Ruth makes sure she grabs the wine.
Daniel runs the bomb shelter. Ruth runs for the wine, and that's kind of like all you need to know about us.
Priorities. Priorities.
I was like, "Where's the shop?" Well, because I was in an environment I didn't know, and usually like I'm at home because I spend a lot of time at home and I work from home. But I was like, I panic because I'm like, I have 90 seconds and I have no idea where the shelter is. So I'm just like, and Ruth is like, hold on, where's the white wine? And we just like sit in the bomb shelter, like having like a little wine. So
and then we got congratulated in the shelter for having wine.
yeah, everyone is like, oh yeah, that was.
They were jealous. They were jealous.
I mean, alcohol also plays a role. I remember when I went to my parents and then I went to the supermarket and I was like, and by the way, so it did in COVID. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna numb myself to sleep because this is such a fucking shit show. So yeah, I bought a whiskey, I bought a few bottles of wine, and I was like, I just
and cracked on.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah. So at some point I was like, give me a glass of wine, give me Made in Manhattan, give me some J-Lo. When I'm really, really stressed and anxious,
that's I'm very.
I just watch Made in Manhattan.
Made in Manhattan. I'm more.
You haven't seen Made in Manhattan?
I have, yeah.
It's a classic.
It is a classic. I think I'm more of a Sex and the City girl. That I just because I know every line.
Right. Yeah. Another
Bit
friend
of Samantha Jones, and
another friend of mine, like Friends, is his thing. So again, it's like, how do you numb yourself? Stay away from the news. A bit of alcohol, a bit of comedy, but I was terrified. I mean, I slept with my shoes on for a week in Jerusalem.
Did you?
I was terrified because then I went to my parents. They live on a 9th floor, so at least in Tel Aviv, my room is the safe space, and in my parents, they live on a 9th floor. And then they go to the staircase, but then really is the shelter is at the bottom of the building, so they have to go down 10 floors. Also, like for example, like in the Iranian attack, it's like my sister has footage from my house in Jerusalem. It's insane. You see these massive balls of fire falling from the sky. She was like, the booms were so loud. Wow. My parents got woken up by the boom. My mom goes to the bomb shelter. She forgets her glasses. It's like people don't understand like these little things. So I was panicking for like a week, and I was like sleeping with my sneakers on because I was like, if I have to run, I just don't want to start like scrambling
looking for your shoes.
And then my sister was like, she's like, well, you can leave your shoes by the door and then just grab them on the way out. And I was like,
or just have sliders by the door or something. So
but sliders I feel like I can trip on. I just don't know. So you know what I mean? So I was like, I just need to have some kind of like robe, and I don't know. It's like I had like my paranoias as well. So, and then my sister was like, yeah, well, just leave them by the door. And I was like, oh, that's clever. That's clever. So I started so it's just, I don't know.
Well, my first night here, I used to live in a different apartment, and the mamad, the safe room, was my bedroom. I've now moved here, and the safe room is actually outside the building, 20 meters away. So my first night here, 2-3 weeks ago, siren went off about 8:30. I was relieved that I had clothes on.
Right.
That was a good start.
Well, you do see a lot of naked people when the siren goes off.
You do.
Especially in Tel Aviv.
I had clothes on. I did have they were pajamas, but I was clothed.
Right. You were decent.
I was decent, and it was pouring with rain. So I had sliders on, started slipping and sliding on the ground. Yeah, got to the bomb shelter, stayed there for 10 minutes, came back, went back into bed, watched a movie, went to sleep.
Right. I also think there's really funny stuff about like, so for example, like my friend's parents were staying in a hotel when October 7th happened, and the sirens went off. They have to go from the room of the hotel to the stairwell, or to some main entrance. But like the mom, she's quite like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. She's this Mancunian. She really takes care of her appearance, and she was like
makeup.
Basically, she started putting on her makeup.
Oh my!
She was like, I'm not leaving my room without some foundation and a little blush. And by the time she finished doing it, everyone was returning to their rooms because the race was over. So that's also really funny. Then there's also really sad stuff. So for example, like I have like my brother lives kind of like a little bit more south of Israel, not near Gaza, but like kind of like a little bit more south. And I have like 5 nephews, aged like, between like 3 and 11. And they were all sleeping for 4 or 5 months pretty much in the bomb shelter because they're like, if a siren goes off, I'm not going to start like waking everyone up. They have like maybe 30 seconds. Okay. And I'm like, well, put them all with mattresses, let them all sleep there, and then kind of like for the first 4 to 5 months when there was like constant missiles from Gaza, all my nephews were sleeping. And it's also like really sad because I mean people don't speak enough about the impact that this has on children. Like
children.
it's funny, like one morning my nephew said to me,
children are very resilient, but let's not forget the trauma.
yeah, but also children and adults, and
Yeah.
and also like don't forget that even if you say to a kid, yeah, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, they know what's going on, and they know that when the father says it's fine but he doesn't mean it or he's scared, they pick up on anything. It's like, you know, like animals, like dogs, everyone
Yeah.
picks up on the energy, and
Yeah,
if
of
a
course.
parent is worried and scared, the kid is going to be worried
Yeah.
and scared. So it's funny, like once my nephew said to me one morning, he's like, Uncle Daniel, like, you know, I'm just really scared that someone's going to go into my house and kill me and my family. And you know how kids just say
Yeah.
as it is, and I was like, wow. And I was like,
And how do you reassure them?
yeah.
Do I have the words to reassure them?
Well, I mean, I just said like, no, that's never going to happen. You'll be fine. But then I say, kids always pick up on our fears and our
Yeah.
so. Or my other nephew, he's like really scared. He's 5. He's scared of like just like taking a shower or a bath on his own. He just doesn't want to be left alone in the bathroom because if the siren goes off, he's just gonna get really scared and nervous. Or my friend, actually, a single mother that lives in Jerusalem, she was telling me, she's like, she has a kid that is, I think 9 or 10, and she's like, Daniel, sometimes I just watch him sleep, and he's just crying in his sleep.
Oh.
It's really sad, and then he's going to like psychology.
I think he needs a rain on me.
What's a rain on me?
He needs a rain on me something so it can protect him.
Right.
It's like a rain on me, and any item from rain on me is like having a little hug.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that I mean your
one
designs.
of my one of my
Sorry.
So well, I'm putting a lot of this on my rain on me. So if you don't know what I am a designer and I do wearable art. This is one of my pieces, and so I think Daniel's nephew could do with the rain
all
on
of
me.
them. So like it's interesting how like, you know, they react to it, and the story I hear, and like parents is you know, and it's sad and it's tragic and it's everything, but at the end of the day, it's the reality that we have to face and that we have to live in. And also, like, you know, everything, or like, I just think it's always like the youngest people and also the oldest people. I think like the old people, or you know, really old people that are like, no, you know, they just don't have the strength or the flexibility or the stamina to go down the stairs,
or to be running.
So like it's all that panic is just really annoying. But on the other hand, I think for young people, and Tel Aviv is a very young city, and that's why people get on. And also, like, I think what people need to understand, okay, even if you have like 5 rocket sirens, even if whatever happens, like the weekend arrives and everybody wants to drink
and go out
and
enjoy their life.
And also other people, and this is kind of like going back to the Iran stuff, and then also like people react differently to things. A friend of mine, like you said, like I was panicking, doing research, doing my spreadsheets, being at home, doing all this stuff. Another friend of mine, he was like you said, he's like, well, we still have a few hours, I'm going to stay in this bar meeting people. And he just met a perfect stranger and he had the best sex of his life.
Oh, brilliant. Love that.
Iran was bombing Israel. So, and then he's like, you know, I was plugged to the news, just like minute by minute. Actually, my parents went to bed, then got woken up by the explosions. I didn't go to bed until I saw that the attack was thwarted. I was like literally on the edge of my seat. I had people messaging me from England, from South America, friends and that, which is really interesting.
I to end on a sort of positive on this, I think the solidarity I feel here is, I find it a real pacifier, like a real calming influence.
Yeah.
Very,
And it's what you say, it's also the resilience, because for example, like after that Iranian attack, everybody went to work the morning after.
Yeah.
And even if people were like everyone was looking rough.
Yeah.
In the streets, people were looking rough. And but everyone goes to work, life goes on, people have to, and you have to.
You have to.
I mean, like, in a way, the country collapsed on October 7th, and we know what that looks like, and we know the following week looks like, where like businesses are closed, offices are closed, schools are closed, and you know, in a way, kind of like that's our fight. Our fight is
to carry on.
To carry on.
And keep breathing.
Exactly. Keep breathing, do your routine, go to your gym.
Yeah.
Finish your presentations on time.
Keep laughing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing about the Jewish people, is our sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so.
Yeah. Keep laughing.
Yeah.
Keep watching your Netflix, keep doing your thing, and
Keep drinking your coffee.
keep drinking your coffee, and when something happens, you just like follow the rules, take shelter, follow the protocols, and then just try to escape the madness a little bit. But I would agree with what you say. I'm sometimes more shocked and more upset about how the events that I'm living and that I'm seeing are portrayed by the world than by the events themselves. And I'm like, well, when I see someone saying like, oh yeah, like when someone glorifying terrorism and calling them freedom fighters, or just denying things that I'm seeing and I'm living, like when I see stuff like that, hear stuff like that, where it's in a debate, a news article or stuff, on the one hand, it's like when I see that, and also when I've seen like a year of unreported realities. So I think like propaganda is not just saying lies, it's also not
reporting
on the truth of the ground. And I think that's why I was so vocal about what was happening in the Northern Front, and that was like, well, nobody's speaking about this for a year, and then of course the world is like, oh my God, Israel is starting a new front with Lebanon, and it was like, no. I've been like screaming about it for a year. Nobody cares. Nobody knows. Then there's like 70,000 people out of the houses for a year. Daily rocket. So all of that stuff is what really upsets me.
Yeah. Also, when after the Iran attack, I went straight on camera to basically talk about how Israel has the infrastructure in place to keep us all safe, and how Hamas built nothing. Zero.
Well, they do have the infrastructure. They have 500 kilometers of
tunnels. They have tunnels to keep themselves safe,
to
keep the terrorists safe, not their people.
Right.
And so I went straight on camera, and then had a load of online hate. And I was like, wow, I've just come out of a bomb shelter. 200 ballistic missiles have been thrown at me. I still haven't quite sort of processed this.
You can't. It's kind of like you just can't.
It. So I go on. I'm really, really talking about the fact that not one Israeli person, not one person died. Well, one person did die. It was an Arab. It was a Palestinian. But out of a country of 10 million, so the fact that we've got the infrastructure in place. So I went on camera to say all this, and then just got this barrage of hate, and I was like, wow, just where's the empathy of the fact that I've just been in a bomb shelter?
Zero empathy.
200 ballistic missiles thrown, and I'm just telling the truth. But no.
Anyway, so this is kind of like our experience of like living on the bombs. I did this video because my friend, a couple of friends mentioned that they would love to know a little bit more about like how day-to-day life are. So anyway, if you wanna also if you have a curiosity of any other aspects of our experiences, as you can see, we do have quite different experiences and opinions. But anyway, thank you so much, and we'll keep chatting from Tel Aviv.
Thank you.